Today we're gonna create ourselves another Primalist, and this time we're gonna go for the Shaman mastery. And the idea that I wanna try out for today is to create some sort of a close combat spellcaster, making sure that we are tanky enough to survive both melee and range combat, and also throw in spells like this one, Maelstrom. Surround yourself with a freezing Maelstrom that deals cold damage over time to nearby enemies. I don't know how many options we have for this sort of a build, but this will be my main focus. If we take a look at the Shaman Mastery, at the power scaling tags we can see down at the bottom, we have Minion and Totem here with Lightning and Spell, Physical and Spell, we have Physical and Melee, Physical, Cold and Spell. So all of these, some of these seem to be spells that we cast at a distance. This one is a melee attack that we can cast nearby. We shall see how and which one we are going to pick and how it's going to work. But I'll see you a bit later in the game whenever I unlock Maelstrom, and we shall see what choices we make there. Good morning everyone, and welcome to the Two-Headed Old Gaming channel and Last Epoch. I hope you're having yourselves a good day with a nice cup of coffee right beside you, as this is going to be an interesting episode and I'm hoping an interesting run as we're heading towards the Shaman Mastery. This episode in particular will be split into 3 parts, each one focused around one main skill: Gathering Storm, Tempest Strike, and Maelstrom. As I said in the beginning, we're gonna create ourselves a close combat spellcaster, and Maelstrom and Tempest Strikes are both spells, so it's pretty straightforward on how we scale them up. However, Gathering Storm it is not. It is a melee attack with lightning damage. Strike at our enemies with a mighty lightning power storm. Whenever we use this skill and hit at least one enemy, we gain a storm stack. Every second we expand the storm stack, we cause a storm bolt to strike at a nearby enemy, and this interval is reduced by 2% for every stack we currently have. To put it in simpler terms, we're doing a melee attack with lightning damage, getting some storm stacks, and whenever those are used, we cause a lightning bolt to drop on nearby enemies. That is the simplest way in which I can put it. This attack in particular, if you take a look at when we are using a club, you can see we're doing 25 damage. If I was to force myself to use a wand because I want to be a spellcaster, this attack would cause 4 damage. And that is really bad for us, right? However, even though Gathering Storm is a melee attack, Stormbolt is not. Call forth a bolt of lightning to strike the area. It does 40 damage, has a 10 mana cost, and it is a spell. And thus when we're using the wand over here and we're taking a look at the Stormbolt, we can see that we're moving from 40 damage to 51 damage and from 10 mana cost to 7 mana cost. So it does scale up with spell damage. And this is the way in which we are going to force ourselves to stay in close combat, because we need to use Gathering Storm as sort of a trigger in order to bring in a lot of storm bolts, the spells, right? That's how we're gonna use it to begin with. We'll see what we do with the other classes. One big advantage of using wands here is that we are going to get reduced spell mana cost and increase our spell damage. That will be very useful, especially when we're looking at things like Tempest Strike and Maelstrom, which have higher mana costs. Either way, what I am going to focus here on the specialization tree, on one path I want to get here to Two-Eyed Storm. Whenever we expand the storm stack while dual wielding, we now cast storm bolts at 2 enemies instead of 1. That sounds really good to me, something that I would want, but the path there is not going to help us too much at this point. Getting some increased attack speed, a bit of lightning penetration, and reduce current mana consumption and while increasing the damage per current mana by 3%. So it is a bit of damage, but it's nothing too crazy for early game. The other thing which I want to do is get here to Wings of Lightning. Whenever we use Gathering Storm and hit at least one enemy, we gain a stack of Wings of Lightning. Each time one of your Storm Crows attacks, they consume a stack of Wings of Lightning, causing their basic attacks to chain 2 additional times. And if we look here at our Storm Crows, we would have lightning and spell damage. They're down at the bottom, minion tags, okay? So that's something that we're gonna use whenever we will unlock them. The first choices that we're going to go for is this one, Looming Clouds. Whenever we expand the storm stack, we have a chance to cast Stormbolt at an additional enemy. So having higher chances to cast Stormbolt at an additional enemy is really good. We're also gaining lightning strikes twice. Whenever we hit a boss or a rare enemy with Stormbolt, we have a chance to cast it again at the same enemy after 0.25 seconds. That is really important for us, as we will need to make sure that we're doing a lot of damage to stronger enemies. We can also go with this one. I haven't decided whether I want to do this yet. Lagonian Diplomacy. While wielding a staff, the melee attack of Gathering Storm is actually replaced by a direct range cast of Stormbolt, but Gathering Storm costs additional mana. So that is really cool. We're actually turning a melee attack into a range, into a spell. However, it increases the mana cost, and I might want to do this. I haven't decided yet. I think I want to go with dual wielding at this moment, but maybe we will change our mind a bit later on. So for right now, we're going to go this way, and then we're gonna go towards the dual wielding because that's what I'm planning to do. And as far as skills go, we will need extra health. I don't need strength and health regeneration, but more importantly, I think I need attunement and lightning and cold resistance. Attunement because it provides us with 2 mana and improves the strength of our spells. So we're gonna go on this path, and then we're gonna jump into dual wield. Unfortunately, in our second hand, we can only throw in axes and swords, so it's just gonna add to some of our melee damage here whenever we will equip one of those. I wish it was a scepter at least, but that is unfortunately not the case. But maybe we can modify those weapons to give us something really good. Maybe even throw in a unique. We shall see in a second. So for right now we're doing 4 melee damage, but we are doing 61 with the Stormbolt, and we shall see it in action. I'm quite excited to see this. So I'm thinking the first thing we will need, you can see that lightning drops pretty often there. It's not the craziest build yet because it's still early game. We just started investing, but I think one of the bonuses that we could have, or one of the things that I could do, is probably get ourselves a really quick sword, jump back into it, and I think I have one in my stash, so I'll be right back. So here we are back. Now we are forced by circumstances to equip either a sword or an axe in our secondary slot. We cannot put another one there. But this Humming Bee, we've seen it before with the Rogue. 22% increased melee attack speed, 4% increased movement speed, 4 ward gain on melee hit, 1% chance per 20 ward to gain haste for 2 seconds when you directly use a melee attack, and elemental attacks deal 1% increased damage per 200 ward. I don't know if we're gonna get to 200 ward at any point, but this one should increase our attack speed just a little, helping us in throwing in those lightning bolts a bit more often. Now we're also doing, as you can see, I've raised the damage that we're doing there in melee as well, so it's not a pure build just yet. But the main focus that we are going to have going forward is going to be around spellcasting. Now, if we can make our experience a bit more smoother by adding in some melee damage and that, why not, I would say, right? Why not? We got pretty lucky here. Now, if I didn't have this sword, I would have picked up this hatchet here, just giving us a bit more melee damage and some lightning damage. But I think we have something which is pretty good to begin with. It's an early, unique sword. You don't need to go far into the game just to find this. I make such good coffee today. Do you have those days when, for some reason, coffee just doesn't turn out good? Whether you meet the proportions or maybe it's something in the water, like I don't know exactly what is the reason for it, but sometimes I make really mad coffee and there are days when coffee tastes like so good. Maybe it's just about how it feels, like maybe the mood and things like that, how you feel in the morning. Maybe it's the taste buds that go wild or something. For now, I'm also going to use all the skills that we have available here. We're gonna use minions and all that. We're not made at this point to be super tanky. We don't have enough protection yet. We're gonna have to use other skills until we unlock all of these, Tempest Strikes and Maelstrom. So as the next point, what are we going to go? We don't need any more on the minions. I don't think that the Storm Crows are getting hit that often, so we're not going to invest in that at all. Hunter's Restoration, you have increased health, and every 3 seconds your next hit restores your health. I would like to do a bit of that. I think 1 point there is better than no point there. We're gonna keep our healing in the bar as well. And I have these 2 body armors and boots, which I want to use later on. The unique boots, 125 armor, 40 mana, 10 strength, 11 lightning resistance, and 1% increased mana regeneration per 3% uncapped lightning resistance. Sounds like interesting and useful to me. And then Storm Tide, 35 armor, 7% increased movement speed, with another 25% increased movement speed, 128% chance to shock on lightning hit, 13% increased shock duration, and you are shocked for 4 seconds when you stop moving. That is a bit unfortunate. That is going to increase the chance for the enemy to stun us, but maybe the lightning damage will be all worth it. Now I am going to continue going in this direction. We're gonna fight this boss and just to see how things feel in this battle, because we're gonna have a higher chance to drop another lightning bolt on the boss when hitting a boss. So we shall see how quickly we manage to defeat the enemies. You can see that we're taking a lot of damage. For right now I am not that great on mana, but we're getting a bit of ward from the sword. Not that great on defense and health, I wanted to say, not mana. But we're getting some wards there, and I should probably buy some better armor and things like that, but it's not for the moment. We're just going to stay like this. I didn't want to equip any of the other armors which I had, which I could equip from our stats which were uniques, because we're going with melee damage, right? We're forcing ourselves to stay in melee damage, and we are a spellcaster. I wanted to show how this feels and how weak we might be in this situation, right? That is very important for this build. The fact that you are not going to cause as much damage early on, and that you are going to receive a lot of damage from a lot of sources, and you have to survive, right? That's the focus. No point in avoiding the fact that we are weak and just try to cover it by equipping better armor or unique armor. Over here, we're going to get a bit more physical resistance. That is great. I don't want to lose the armor, even though we're getting some increase. Actually, no, 21% increased stun chance. That could be really good because we are in melee. At the point where we're reaching level 15, to get a unique armor on us doesn't seem that big of a deal. But let me tell you one more thing before I put in a cut, and we'll see each other on the next point at Tempest Strike. Another thing which I will want to do is go this way. Mana Fuse Storm. Whenever you directly use Gathering Storm, you gain mana per active storm stack up to a maximum. So maximum storm stacks is 5 there, and we're getting 1 mana per hit. That sounds really good to me, and we can get some increased speed here to make sure that this happens a lot more often. The reason why I want to go there and get that extra mana is because we will need mana in order to cast Tempest Strike and Maelstrom as well, and I'm guessing that this is going to stay in our inventory and be sort of a generator for whenever we want to use these skills. With this being said, I'll see you a bit later. We're at level 10, and perfect timing because we're about to have ourselves a boss battle. So first things first, let's spend some passive skill points. I am thinking that what I want to do here is go further with attunement, and then we're gonna get ourselves Wisdom of the Wild, which increases our spell damage and increases minion spell damage, which we will need whenever we are summoning our Storm Crows. So that's something I am going to start investing in. Haven't invested in health just yet. We might have to backtrack on that and do a bit more investing there. It's either that or this one right here. Let's see, 10 health per point and increase minion health by 5 per point, 5% per point. We would get 10 health here, and our companions would get 10% increase plus companion revival speed. So that might be actually better. And I'm also thinking about Tempest Bond, because that is going to come in handy when using Tempest Strike. This one is a melee combo attack that cycles through a cold strike, a physical strike, and a lightning strike that triggers elemental tempest spells of the same damage type if the strikes hit at least one enemy. So once again, the trigger is melee combat. However, Cold Strikes triggers Frigid Tempest, which is a cold projectile that pierces through enemies. Physical Strike triggers Wind Tempest, which is a small twister that lasts a short duration, dealing physical damage over time. Lightning Strike triggers a Thunder Tempest, which is an expanding storm of lightning bolts. It does 214 melee damage, while Gathering Storm does only 31. However, it has a mana cost of 13. We're gonna specialize in this one as well, and we're gonna see exactly how it works. Now, what I'm thinking for it is that we're gonna focus on lightning. I'm not sure exactly. It seems like it's constantly going through these free attacks, and we can't really focus it. You can now create Tempest totems that cast a Tempest of the corresponding strike that create the totem, but you are limited to one of each type of totem. Removes melee attack for lightning, but summons a Tempest totem instead. I'm guessing that's what it is. It seems like that is the case, and it might be very interesting to use these sort of attacks for a totem build. Let's see, where do we want to go first? Thunder Tempest around Storm Totem. Whenever you cast Thunder Tempest, you can also cast it around your nearest totem. Yeah, it is one of those things where you focus on totems instead. Well, let's go this way. The melee hit grants you a stack of Gladiator of Lagon for 8 seconds, which grants you and your minions additional spell damage. I do like that a lot. And it can trigger a maximum of 3 times per second. Yes, we're gonna invest 1 point there. Storm Riding Companions. Tempest Strike penetrates enemy physical resistance per active physical minion, penetrates cold resistance per cold minion, and penetrates lightning resistance per lightning minion. Okay, our crows would be very useful there. You now have a chance to gain a stack of Gladiator of Lagon when you cast a Tempest, which is this one. Sure, we need 2 points there in order to get here. Gladiator of Lagon has double effect on your totems and Storm Crows if you have at least 50 intelligence. We're far away from 50 intelligence. Yeah, we have 1 at this moment. We have 11 attunement, but that's about it. And I'm going to replace... I guess Fury Leap is not something we use that often. We're gonna try to do Tempest Strikes to begin with. And whenever we're running out of mana, we're gonna go into Gathering Storms. And whenever we reach a level where Gathering Storms also brings us some mana, that will be, you know, a good time, I could say. So let's do this. Let's go behind this enemy. And we're doing good damage, and you can see we're cycling between spells. At this point, we can go with the normal attack, and our lightning bolt, even though our melee damage does 15 to 30 damage whenever it's a critical, that's the maximum. We're doing about 70 to 90 damage from our lightning bolts, and that's really cool. I don't think I have to run away from this one. No, he's just empowering himself. Overall, as you can see, things are going pretty well. However, using Howl uses some of our mana, 31 actually. That's not the greatest situation we find ourselves in. Look at how quickly we're actually damaging this enemy. Anything that can scale up spell damage seems to be working really well. Even though we're not doing a whole lot of melee damage, doing spell damage is the way to go. So far so good. And we're going into town now. And there's nothing really that I want to talk about. At this moment, we're doing some lightning penetration with Thunderous Strikes, and we're going towards Two-Eyed Storm to get that double Storm Bolt whenever we're dual wielding, and we're already doing that. Then we're gonna go for Mana Fuse, and who knows what else from up here. Either way, it's going to take me a little longer, and I feel like we're gonna return when I can throw in Maelstrom. In what, 2 levels? In about 2 levels, and then we're gonna have our entire episode using these 3 skills together, and that is going to be for this one. So I'll see you in another second. And here we are in the last step of this episode. We have unlocked Maelstrom, so now we can get surrounded with a freezing Maelstrom that deals cold damage over time to nearby enemies. This one is with cold, it's not with lightning. I'm looking forward to unlocking another slot here at level 20 to specialize in Maelstrom as well. And I'm thinking of going in this direction with lightning. Basically turning everything towards lightning damage might be the best idea, or the other path, I guess you could say, would be to go in this direction to chill enemies, which would reduce the enemy's attack speed, cast speed, and movement speed, thus allowing us to be slightly tankier, right? Because we are in close combat. Freeze rate multiplier, we can even freeze them in place. Tsunami summoned at 0 stacks. When your number of Maelstrom stacks reaches 0, you release a Tsunami, a cold spell that deals damage multiplied by your highest stack count. That's also really impressive. Is there anything here which gets us some automation? That would be really good. We can get Frenzy at 6 or more stacks, mana efficiency, chance on kill to cast Maelstrom 5% per point. That's what we want. This will automate our process in such a way that we don't need to manually cast this. And that would be absolutely great for us. Yes. So we're gonna go in this direction at level 20. It's going to take us a while to get there. Here I'm still working towards Two-Eyed Storm. And with this one, let's see. You now have a chance to gain a stack of Gladiator of Lagon whenever you cast a Tempest. That's something which I wanted. So let's do it. At the end of the day, we're getting extra spell damage, and that's why I want it. I will also want to go, let's see, where next? Probably here. Frigid Tempest gets a higher chance to freeze, we get a higher chance to shock, and also deal more damage. I like that idea. You know, we're throwing in a bunch of debuffs on the enemies, and I feel like that is really good. Nature Storm, if Tempest strikes, melee attack does not hit an enemy, you consume a stack of Gladiator of Lagoon to cast Tempest on the respective type. I see, so we would be able to cast the Tempest even though we wouldn't be able to hit the enemy, which would help, I guess, in some situation. I don't know how often we miss at this moment, but there we go. And the way I'm looking at the gameplay of this, although, you know, we're waiting until level 20 to get Maelstrom. And even though on one side I am looking forward to that, the downside would be that we are going to pick up the mastery of the Shaman pretty soon. And it's not really going to work super well with that, right? As you can see, one of the things which I like to do is cast it once or twice. We're doing about 26 damage per second, I guess, or per hit of the Maelstrom. So we can prepare it before we go into combat. Of course, getting the automation for the Maelstrom would be absolutely great. But I don't know exactly what we will get once we're specialized. I'm not gonna look ahead, there's no point to it. We're gonna get there when we're gonna get there. And I should be using the other attacks as well. Right, we go with 2 Maelstroms and then I'm going with some of these Tempest Strikes until we're out of mana. And I'm gonna keep Gathering Storms as sort of a generator for later on. That is the plan for the moment. Let's see, is there anything else here that I want? No. I've actually replaced the wand. I found the scepter here, which increases cast speed, increases lightning damage, and increases stun chance with melee attacks. It's, with everything put together, this is actually better than this. It increases our spell damage, so I stay with the scepter. I guess I will keep going back and forth, depending on what I find better for spell casting. Let's also throw a few more points, and I'm guessing we're gonna go even further with spell damage. That is our main focus here. 5 points there, allowing us to get into Elder Branch later on. We can now summon crows, and that will be great. Let's see, which one do we want to replace? I guess we'll replace the wolf here. Let's bring those storm crows. We are starting with 2, that is going to be great. We can also do a massive lightning strike in the targeted area whenever we're using the Crow Storm's ability. So that is going to be pretty cool. And let's see, over here, we don't have 50 intelligence, so we don't need to improve our crows there. We're going to get the debuffs over here. We can increase the chances to do Wind Tempest or what to... You have a chance to also cast Thunder Tempest whenever you attack with cold or physical. I see, so you can get a bit of a chance to cast each of the other effects or the other storms whenever you are doing a different type of damage, which could stack up to a lot if we think about it, right? Really depends on the triggers, but in a normal fight, which takes quite long, I guess that works. And you know what? Let me go back home, just because completing this quest gives us those average gloves, which provide us with a bit more elemental damage.
Goodbye.
Right? We also got another passive, so we can get what next? I think we're going to go with this one. Tempest Bond, dealing increased physical, cold, and lightning damage. Since we are doing a lot with the Tempest Strike, and on this side we're now going to go with Storm Bolts. Now consume a portion of your current mana to deal more damage. It is a bit unfortunate that we're going to consume some of our mana, but we will need it. I guess let's get the mana from storm stacks first. Let's get the generator, then we're going to go into consumption, and then we're going to go in the two-eyed storm. I feel like that is probably the best way forward. How much lightning damage are we doing now? How much per storm bolt? Let's take a quick look here. 164 while we're doing 75 melee damage. That's really nice. And if we throw this in, we're doing 164. Okay. So more elemental resistance actually. It's not elemental damage. I thought it was elemental damage, but I guess I forgot. We're just getting some health from elemental damage. I think that's good as well. Either way, it's starting to look pretty good, even though our melee damage, once again, it's not the greatest, and it's not what we're here about. But we can see those bolts doing a lot for us, and all the triggers that we have are really going to be great. Melee damage, spell damage, melee cold damage, increased melee attack. This is not enough for our spells. It's mostly for our melee. So we're not going to invest in that. We're going to stay mostly in this sort of weakened state of melee in order to focus on spell casting. Now you can do both. I am not stopping you in making this a whole lot better, right? If you want to do, I guess the smarter thing here would be to go with good melee damage as well while scaling up, constantly scaling up spell damage. That is definitely the way to make this even better. But I want to force myself to stay as much as I can on spells, just to see how functional it can be. It would have been a bit more interesting to be able to equip another wand or a scepter in, even if it wasn't a wand, to just get in another scepter in our secondary hand. Use to reduce the consumption, right? Because each of the wands reduces your mana cost by 3. And it also gives you some spell damage. So working two wands together, -6 mana, I feel like that would be good. Maybe it would be a bit overpowered. Maybe they thought about this. I mean, why wouldn't they think about this when they've made so many possibilities of combinations, right, for different weapons and all that. 18 plus 18 armor plus 3 attunement, which will help us. Some cold resistance and vitality, which will also help us. 33% increased health regeneration. We lose a bunch of dodge in the process. I think like this works for us. And what are we running with? Some increased lightning damage. As much as I would like that, I think going with a bit more resistance is better, even though, given the amount of lightning damage that we are doing, it's better if you would go with the 8%, because 8% adds up to all of the attacks which are doing. And we're gonna finish it with this battle here. Let's cast a bunch of Maelstorms here. Then we're gonna do a bunch of attacks like this. We're gonna do the Crow Strike as well. Yeah, this is going really well. We're destroying this. I like it. I like it. I like it. I'm happy with how it's turned out. Hope you found this episode interesting. Hope I gave you sort of a unique idea for what you could do. You know, a unique idea depending on what videos watched at the end of the day, because it's not like you don't have the same tools that I have, and I'm sure there are people who have tried this out before. Maybe they've even taken it to the end game, or maybe not. Who knows? Either way, hope you have enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the next episode. We're gonna be picking the mastery, and we're gonna see what we can do as a shaman. That is going to be very interesting to try out. And yep, until the next episode, thank you very much for watching. Do consider leaving a like, as it does help me, helps the channel grow. And I wish you all have a wonderful day.